Hi, everybody. Are you ready to learn all about insider threats, right? That's what we're all here for. So to do this, we need to start with everybody interacting. This isn't a one-way street. We're going to get all involved, okay? So survey of 800 million human beings came back with the top answers to who or what is an insider. So audience participation, who or what is an insider when we talk insider threat? An employee. Number one insider threat is an employee, right? All right, who's another one? Who? Machine database. Okay, I'm going to go with automated systems as another method of insider threat. Who? A relative of the employee. All right. No, not necessarily. I mean, probably, but it's number 6. A service provider, we're going to go with contractors, right? Contractors we bring in, right? Okay, next one. Suppliers, right? I don't have that one, sorry. Which one? Suppliers, no, I got another one. Think of employees, but they're the cleaning lady, okay, yes. Contractors, though, we'll say that. Think about employees, but maybe not currently. Former employees, right. I mean, I don't know about you, but how many times has IT figured out that there's people still in the system that have left years ago, right? All right, the final one's a little USB ports, those kind of things, yeah. Ones. All right. So the last one is compromised accounts, right? Some phishing attack, some other kind of element that's come in, and it is taken over control of who the employee was, right? So an insider doesn't have to necessarily be the person themselves. It can be something else that's taken over and controlling that. So, why is this going so? Sorry about that. So I just wanted to lay out the framework of who an insider is so that we understand the threat profile that we've got to reach, right? Now the problem is insider threats are, even from an employee perspective, something that is very difficult to control. So all of us know John Locke, right? You guys quote John Locke every day in your philosophical meanderings, but he created a statement that came from this that deals with the fact of labor theory, and that is that if somebody works on something, they think they own it, right? How many of you, by showing hands, we have cameras so that your employers will know, have either taken information you created at a company and used it at your new company, or even stored information that you generated and took it with you when you left the company? Show of hands. Let's be honest, folks. Show of hands. Show of hands. Okay, everybody should be lifting their hand because everybody's done this, right? You've not done that. Okay, well, there's one saint in the audience. But this is just standard human behavior. Is they think if you have done something, if you worked on a project, you own what you worked on, right? Even though the company itself is the one that owns that. Huge, massive percentages show this to be. I put a few of them up here. But, you know, companies themselves are complicit, right? We don't want people leaving with data, but 63% of them people come with data. And we kind of hire them for that reason, right? Oh, you worked at this company. This is something I want in the company that I'm dealing with now. All right. So this is a common mindset. We have a problem where insider threat is the number one issue facing companies today. Right? IP theft or IP loss is in the billions a year for industry, right? And we don't talk a lot about it. It doesn't show up necessarily in the news. Ransomware shows up and everybody's like, that's pretty exciting. Ransomware is a fraction of the cost of businesses for insider, okay? People losing IP all the time. So what do we need to do about it? So one of the first things, and I'm going to jump into how is it that we as a business can start to deal with the insider problem, right? And when I say insider problem, you should have the hair go up on the back of your neck, because insiders are who make your business run, right? They're your employees. They're the people that get things accomplished. So you have to, by nature, provide them all the information they need to do the job for you, right? But you need to somehow protect yourself. Part of it starts with designing and implementing a complete cybersecurity infrastructure. Now the problem with that is, what is that? What is a complete cybersecurity infrastructure? Because there's 15 gazillion vendors, and they're all telling you that they do this, and they don't, or they don't do it completely. So one of the things that has come out of, closer, sorry. I got the high sign that I was being too quiet. All right. One of the things that has come out in the last year from the U.S. government, believe it or not, is called CMMC. And it is all focused on cybersecurity for the industry. And what they've done is they've mandated that any supplier of the U.S. government needs to be CMMC compliant. Now on the surface, most people would take a new compliance requirement by the government and say, oh my gosh, this is going to kill me. But in reality, the things that they're requiring businesses to do are best practices, things that they should have been doing. And what they're trying to do is force the supply base in the US specifically to come up to the level of cybersecurity that we need, so that you're not losing IP, that you're not losing sensitive content, so on and so forth. Now, one of the things that has come out from that is this concept of a secure enclave. And the secure enclaves are these cloud-based environments that have all of the elements that are called out for in CMMC, and you can just simply go to that cloud environment with your data and your data sets, and you're going to be able to achieve 70 to 90% of the compliance elements that the government's calling out. And if you were to do that, you would get a significant level of improvement in your cybersecurity profile and the security against threats. Outside threats as well, but some inside threats too. So these secure enclaves exist. There's multiple of them out there. People provide them. Not all of them are equal. You want to look at those. But the way you want to think about it is, there's cloud, right? Everybody for the longest time said, if I just go to the cloud, I'm good, right? Cloud's got everything. Cloud's perfect. Then we realized what the cloud is just a selection of options that you have to put together to implement whatever solution you have. So you're still kind of stuck back figuring out what I need to do. What the enclaves have done is taken this step further. They've already gone and selected all of the components and elements that you need to have a complete security profile, okay? So that's the way to think about them. And the benefit of it is, if you ever want to manage, go to the Department of Defense, you've already got a huge leg up, because you've got a FedRAMP high requirements that they're all looking for. Okay. So this is something that just is kind of a prerequisite. You either have to have your own IT environment at this level, or as I said, simply go use this service and you will be at that level. But it hasn't necessarily solved, especially in the world of manufacturing, all of the challenges of insider threat. Can I see a wave of hands? How many of you are manufacturers? Manufacturing. Okay. How many of you happen to have employees that might have build files sitting in their toolbox next to their station? Right? I mean, manufacturing has not really taken a secure profile to their environment the way we have in the general world of IT. This IT-OT interface has been a challenge, right? And the reason is clear. The manufacturer wants to build parts and get paid. That's OT, right? All of this IT stuff in general seems to be distracting from it. And so part of the challenge is, how do we bring in manufacturing into this insider threat protection capability, but yet still provide all of the elements needed for manufacturing to operate effectively and efficiently? All right. So one of the key things to this is that the build files, especially the sensitive ones, should never be freely available. So one of the practices that exist in manufacturing is to use a USB drive to store the build file on it and then walk it over to the machine and put it in the machine, and then I'll build the part. It's kind of a common threat. Others are that we might have an OT network, but that OT network has a connection to the outside world, and suddenly what was supposed to be isolated and secure is no longer secure. So you need to make sure that these build files never are freely accessible, portable, available. The CUI, which stands for Controlled Unclassified Information, or sensitive files, can only be then accessed by authorized personnel. So you need to understand who gets to access this content and how. And they need to be verified, and ideally between multiple people. One of the concepts of this is, if somebody's operating on a sensitive file, do other people know about it, right? Or is this just somebody that went and grabbed something and started operating on it? So you need to think about processes that are controlling the access to the sensitive files, right? And these sensitive files in many cases could be the intellectual property of the company. We were just talking with a lady that started her own company, and the formulation that she was using was her IP. So how is she going to secure it against what she needs to have done? She needs this. It's like the Kentucky Fried Chicken recipe or the Coca-Cola recipe. This is very critical intellectual property that needs to be controlled. So one of the key things as you build out your manufacturing environment is to have operator authentication, right? We need to know that they have the rights to be working on that machine, and not only that they have the right to be working with that particular build file. So they're allowed to build this particular part. So this is a very critical kind of element. Not just anybody should be allowed to build just anything, right? And the access to this should be granted for those specific files and tabs. And so at the end of the day, what's critical is that we can attribute any action that has been taken to any of this critical information to a specific individual and time, right? Because one of the things, sure, how about it? One of the critical things about CMMC is there's an element called incident response, such that if there, as we've seen it, right, some sort of data loss, you have to have somebody respond to you. Well, they have this down to like 2 hours or better. So if you don't know who accessed what, when, and where, you're not going to be able to address that problem either. All right. Beyond the operator is the machine itself. So in this case of building particular elements, the machines that are allowed to build certain things could be located in different spots of the floor, right? You might have a machine that is actually in a room that has a key card access to it, so that you're doing physical security, you're doing all that. And you might have the same kind of machine in another part of your floor that's not in the secured environment. So you need to think about this as part of the challenge, right? Is that secured space might have more security, might have cameras, might have other elements associated with it that allow you to be careful around the sensitive content, right? This is the insider threat problem. Whereas you might be building commercial parts out on the floor and you don't care, right? That's not a problem. But you need to have the ability to control what files are getting built on the machine in the secure location versus what files are being built somewhere else. And so it's just not any machine kind of a concept. And so one of the key to that is linking the machine type, or the physical machine, to the actual sensitive content, and knowing it. So authorization ultimately to build a particular part needs to encompass all of these things. The operator themselves, are they allowed? The machine that they're going to build it on, is that the machine that it should be put on? Because when the file is on the machine, it's exposed. And that's something we need to be aware of, right? There's no way around that. Your machine is building the part. It's got to have the file. Now, some of the things you can do around that is to provide other layers of security, like IP cameras, right? Other sensors that show you who did what, when, and where. And that will help deter any of these insider threats. So I was going to, kind of one of the things of an insider threat problem, they behave just like any other theft, right? When do people rob the jewelry store? Anyone? Any of you rob a jewelry store lately? When would you do it?
In plain sight.
What? At night. Why? Less people, less observation, less chance of getting caught. It's the same thing with IP theft and insider issues. They're not going to be doing this in front of everybody or all this stuff. So the more we can put light to the environment to show things, the less likely somebody's going to go do something like this, right? So this is a critical element. All right. The tighter machine control. One of the other problems we have is that the control of the floor needs to be, shall we say, a little more, well, tighter, more controlled, right? We need to know what's building when and where, and that's the only thing we're doing then and where. So the old day we like to talk about Cousin Earl. Cousin Earl is going to go down and build a park for you. That can't occur anymore. That machine, that operator needs to have a specific schedule, needs to have a specific process, because we need to know that that's what occurred. And so it really needs to bring the machine shop, the shop floor, up to the level of controls that frankly have been missing in manufacturing for a long time. All right, now we need to talk about the files themselves, right? So I've talked about a USB drive or different ways in which people transport files, but the storing and access of those files is super critical. Not all files are the same, right? I can have a build file that's meaningless, like I said, it's not something I'm concerned about. But if I have sensitive content, specifically in the government, CUI or classified material, they have the need to be protected beyond what we would normally think of securing files, right? Our normal access controls from our active domain, our IT group, whatever, that's good. But the sensitive files need to be stored into a secure type of a vault environment. And what I mean by that is it's a separate place that is not human accessible, okay? So once the content is stored, it's going to take system level or multiple other humans to authenticate that you can access that file. So I check the file into this vault, I can't just get it out. I need other people to say, okay, it's okay. You can check this thing out and go operate on it. So this is a layer that you need to add to the very sensitive data that you have in there. I mentioned getting approval from other independent individuals. What you don't want is one guy in IT having the ability to circumvent any of the environment to go get the data directly. You need to have the controls around that access, and that goes beyond the one individual. You need other individuals to authorize that release. As we talked about, the files themselves should be automatically system delivered to the machine. All right. What we don't want is an air gap or a pause anywhere in that environment that could be compromised. So the control goes from the vault to the machine, and that's it. All right. And so this automated delivery would not allow you to view it, copy it, modify it. It's going to be fully controlled as it's put into the floor. Okay, so no changes, right? And finally, we need to talk about controlling of it and delivering it and then automatically purging it, all right? So this is one thing we tend to not think about as well. Today, if I was to walk to a standard kind of manufacturing area, and if you have any automated systems where the operator is getting the file digitally, they tend to have access to a whole lot of files. Everything that they built last week, everything from before, and they kind of hold on to it and control it. That has to end. They have to only see and have access to files that they're being told they can build that day, or that hour, or whatever kind of control you want. And those need to be, as we talked about, based on the operator themselves, all right? So once they select the file, that then needs to take over an automated process. We can't have any manual process to go send files or deliver files to a system, all right? This digital delivery doesn't require any human interaction. This is critical, right? It's not a stop that then another human makes a change to. This connection between the system that's storing it and the machine needs to be highly secure. And I don't really have time to go into all of the elements around what you would do, but this digital connection has multiple layers of security itself. such that nobody can interrupt that stream, nobody can gain access to it. No other external entity is going to be able to break in to this file as it's being transferred to the machine itself. You should think about things like dedicated networks of certain delivery, of certain returns, right? So separate the files that are going to the machines from the telemetry data that's coming back, right? So you want to make sure that those paths are very well controlled as to what data can go in what direction, kind of a thing. I've already talked about no external storage. That's a big deal. And that the key one here, talking about purging. Once the file has built, right, once we've built the part, we need to automatically purge the build file from the machine. A lot of times it just sits there, right? And nobody does anything with it till the next thing they need to build. There's nothing keeping an operator from running and saying build another, right? I'm going to go run the file again. So this automated process needs to include purging of the file from the machine. And if you need to build the same part again, great. You got to go get it from the vault. The vault will send it to the machine, and the machine will build it. And that's critical for something else, not inside a thread issue, but what if you've made a modification to that part in between the first one to the second one? If you have to go back to the source of truth every time, you're going to get the latest version, right? But if you build it on the machine again, you're going to get the old one, right? And so you as the manufacturer don't know which one it was in that case. So by purging it every time, you at least are guaranteed what is the version I'm building, what was it put on the machine. So cleaning that file off is just as critical as getting it to the machine in a secure way. And so this should be done automatically, obviously. If you can't do it, you want to do it through the system. Okay, so this is kind of my talk in general. We can do Q&A, but the idea is, all right, we have insiders. We're not getting rid of insiders. They exist. To make it effective and efficient, I need to bring technology to my system and my environment to control the files, control the environment, and control the process. And so that's how we deal with insiders in manufacturing today. Okay? Questions? I'm ready for questions. You got one. I do not only do the United States. But if you want to manufacture in the U.S., if you want to sell your products in the U.S., you're going to have to be CMMC compliant. CMMC compliant. There's a process we're going to take you through. Yeah. Other questions? I'm sorry? Yeah, good to see you. There you go. Other questions? You guys already asked me two. You got to give me some more. No, you don't? No? All right. All right, guys. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.